morning, everybody, or good evening, wherever you're based. My name is Tala, and I'm a consultant here at Cosmic Centaurs and the host for today's session of the third annual Cosmic Conference. I was telling the team this is actually our penultimate live session for the 3-week conference sprint, which has been ongoing since September 28th. And we have been talking ever since about the employee experience. To better understand the employee experience, we have been exploring the topic through a variety of lenses. We've looked at strategy, how to align your EX to deliver on your business goals. We've looked at all your EX touch points, from internal comms to values to recruitment, upskilling, tech tools, the intranet. And lastly, where we are today is the chapter about human connection. And today I am joined by Jonathan. We are going to be having a really unique structured session, and I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. But for the next 2 days, we have one more thought leader joining us, Breeze Dong, and I'll tell you more about what you can expect from that session in a minute. But all the information about our sessions, our guests, the topics can be found on the conference website, which is cosmiccentersconference.com. Our team will put the link in the chat below so that you guys can catch up on all the insights that have been shared, all the different sessions. We've talked about really a ton of topics, from offsites to upskilling and leadership and distributed settings. So definitely make some time to catch up on all of that content. Before we begin with today's video, I would love if you guys could show us some love, give this video a like, tag someone you think would be interested in exploring this topic with us. And we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments, ask questions. Myself and Jonathan will be taking some audience comments, so we'd love to kind of answer your questions if you have any. Let me introduce who I'm joined by today. We have Jonathan Yeo. He is the founder of the Potential Space. Jonathan is an inclusive culture strategist, a talent development expert, and a leadership coach. He's an inspiring speaker and facilitator, which you guys will get a taste of in just a minute. Prior to founding the Potential Space, Jonathan worked for 10 years at Apple. He was designing and delivering inclusion and diversity solutions, as well as leadership, curricula, and interpersonal skills development programs. Jonathan's created and facilitated programs and learning experiences for high potential and individual contributors, new managers, experienced leaders, mentors, mentee cohorts. He delivers topic-specific experiences that explore things like bias and identity, allyship, and he regularly facilitates workshops focused on team building, comms, and collaboration skills. Like me, Jonathan holds a BA in communication, but from a different institute. He went to the University of Technology in Sydney and is currently undertaking an executive master in change program at INSEAD in Paris. Jonathan, we are so grateful for you to be joining us today.
I am so glad to be here, Tala. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, of course. And actually, this is the second time we have you on one of our live sessions. You were a guest of season 2 of Center Stage, if
I
I
was.
correctly remember. Yeah, in the spring. So we're really grateful to have you back. And let me tell everybody about what we're going to be speaking around today. So our topic is all about identity at work. It's how we think differently about the many aspects of who we are and how we express those to the world, and particularly at work. Identity, as you kind of may know, is really complex and nuanced, and that's for a good reason. We're very intricate as humans. We're very layered. There's so many different aspects that make up who we are. And not many are willing to embrace their whole self or what makes us different and bring that part of us to the workplace. So hoping we can find some space for that discussion today. I think our world of work was initially found on really archaic norms, things like uniforms, codes of conduct, assigned seating, presenteeism. Actually, we talk about the history of the office, and it originated on factory floors where managers would sit and observe everybody working. And that was kind of the first version of the office we ever had. And if you think about what that setting might have looked like and how that's translated to our workspace today, unfortunately, not a lot has changed. And so the settings and stuff have, designed us to be homogenous, but there are many organizations that are putting a valiant effort to create inclusive workspaces that allow people to bring their whole selves to work. And we know that leads to better engagement, retention, performance. The data shows it. McKinsey has a statistic around diverse and inclusive corporations. They're 35% more likely to outperform their competitors, and teams that are diverse are 87% better at making decisions. So there's a lot of data out there that shows us why it's so important to create this space for employees to come to work as their whole self, embrace where they are different, where they are the same. And we see that a lot. Actually, in our recent survey on human connection at work, which Marilyn and Connie Hadley talked about a few nights ago, the second highest rated ritual was about learning each other's cultural background. ethnicity is just one aspect of what makes us different. There's so much else that we can explore. And today, Jonathan is going to lead us into that topic in depth. We do have a few volunteers joining us. We will have a live animated coaching session where we're all going to explore identity. So please have your pen and paper ready. Jonathan may call on you in the chat box to share some of your experience. And we really hope that you are as engaged and excited to take part on this journey with us. So without further ado, Jonathan, I want to hand the floor over to you to kind of set the scene for what our session will be about today.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tala. Yeah, I'm really excited to have this session. This is a version of what I've done with some teams that I've worked with. And so we'll be doing it in kind of an interesting format that will both give you a chance to observe and participate. And as Tala said, we have some great volunteers who are going to sort of model this for us. So, but a little bit about the way I think about identity. And as Tala said, it is this really complicated thing. And when I started working in diversity, equity, and inclusion, this topic of identity would keep coming up. And I'm like, we'd sort of be like, oh yeah, identity. Yeah, we should do something about that. And then the more I became engaged with it and interested in it, the more I realized that identity is a journey. It is a journey of discovery. And that discovery is ongoing. It's not something that we land at any point in time. Our identities are just a myriad of aspects that come and go in importance, in relevance, and situationally. So that's part of what today's experience is about, but it's not, it shouldn't be a one-off. And so, Tala, to your point about, people learning about aspects of people's culture, I mean, there's just an unending sort of treasure trove of things for us to discover about each other. And that to me is so much a part of developing the collaborative relationships that we need at work. So anyway, so I want to just ask a couple of rhetorical questions to start off with. So, so this is for all of you just to think about. So it starts with the biggest rhetorical question. Who are you? Not an easy one to answer. You might have some ideas. Let me dig in a little bit more. Again, rhetorically, who are you at home? Who are you at work? Who are you with your friends? Who are you with your clients? What about who are you when you're on vacation? Or better yet, who are you when you're at karaoke? And who are you when you're alone? So the idea of reflecting on that is that we start to recognize that we are different in all those situations and in many others. The way I like to think of it is we have levers. There are aspects of our identity that we bring to the fore situationally. There are aspects that we might suppress or keep away. So now I have a non-rhetorical question for you. So if you're on the chat, if you can enter your responses here, that'd be great. Why do we adjust? Why do we use those levers? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to just touch on what you said earlier in the backstage, which is welcome to silence. It's a moment for reflection. But I think Karma in the chat says we adjust to feel closer to others. I think we assimilate because it's kind of what we're taught from the beginning. That's one aspect, but
yeah, and I think we find I'm fascinated by similarity and difference.
Yeah.
It's like I was just telling you in the final weeks of my thesis, and it's a big part of what I'm exploring in that.
Yeah.
And I think, we make adjustments to lean into the similarities.
Mm-hmm. And the question is why, right? So why do we do those things? But yeah, really remarkable. I think, like you said, we have here, May says to fit in. Isabel says we adjust to follow social norms. Another respondent says it's rare to find an environment that truly values your differences and kind of creates that space for you to bring them forward.
Yeah, and I love these, and I think fitting in is often is a big one.
Yeah.
That idea, and Isabel's idea of social norms as well. Like we sort of feel that we should adjust, and actually in some cases we should adjust, because and I think, you know, Karma's comment there is interesting, because it's, to me, underneath that is that idea of protection, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to protect the things that are really important to us, and sometimes that's why we might not bring them to certain situations where they might be at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. We do protect ourselves. It's a mechanism, it's an instinct to say, like, I'll just follow the norms, because if I were to deviate, then where would that put me? I'd be an outlier, I'd be an anomaly, and then it wouldn't feel comfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, some of the other things I think about in this is like, we sometimes we want to wait and see as well.
Mm-hmm.
We wait, and we enter gently in, and we see how people respond. We find our comfort. Sometimes when we find our comfort over time, we bring other things, you know, because we feel
Mm-hmm.
secure to do that. We have choices.
Yeah.
And then I think the other reason we're often different in different situations is because we evolve. I think
Mm-hmm.
about whenever I've started a new job at a new company, it's an opportunity to be something that's slightly more,
Mm-hmm.
bring in an aspect of my identity that I've developed or that I've repressed or that I've sort of kept in the shadows. And it's an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to test that out. And we're always doing that in different scenarios.
Yeah.
So I do want to comment, before we move on to the exercise, I do want to, you know, because Tala, you did encourage me to be controversial, and I do want to
Please.
disagree with you.
Please.
Not really disagree, but mention the concept of bringing your whole self to work.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not a fan of bringing your whole self to work for all of these reasons that we just talked about. I sort of
Yeah.
imagine in my head, if I'm bringing my whole self to work, I am dragging a lot of luggage into the office with me, because there's a lot
Yeah.
going on. So it's more about, I think of it as about, what aren't I bringing that I could be, should
Mm-hmm.
be bringing? Why am I, you know, not bringing some of that stuff? And what are the reasons? And they could be good
Yeah.
reasons, but
Yeah.
it's about taking ownership of that.
Absolutely. I welcome that diverging perspective. I think, and like you're saying, there are things that we omit, we don't bring, and like you said, for good reasons. And that doesn't necessarily to mean that we need to kind of lay it all out from day one and, tell everybody, what the part of ourselves that maybe, we're working through or that we don't need. So yeah, absolutely. I think the way I look at it is, what is a work environment that allows you to feel comfortable to be authentic to yourself, to your true self, like where you can bring what you choose to bring,
Yeah.
but there's not a part of you that you're hiding because it's not comfortable to share that, for example, or because you feel like you can't and you need to. So I think from my perspective, it's like, bring the whole version of yourself that you want to bring to the table, and have a working environment that allows you to embrace what makes you different, and not for fear that if you're not the same as everybody you see around you, you wouldn't be able to feel, you wouldn't feel a sense of belonging. You wouldn't be able to perform. You wouldn't be engaged. You wouldn't have those human connections. So yeah, thank you. I love that. And actually, I really welcome all diverging perspectives. Please, like,
Yeah.
whether
And
it's with our audience members or us, or yeah,
the choice is the key. And then sort of
yeah,
recognizing, like, what could be good, what could be helpful for me, what could be helpful for the organization.
yeah,
Um, so with that, what I want to do is bring in our guests
yes,
so that
very
we can
excited.
start to get into the activity that we're going to do. And so some of you may have seen it positioned as a live coaching. And we have Holly and Radu joining us. Welcome,
Hi,
Holly and
Holly. Hi,
Radu.
Radu.
Now, what Holly and Radu are actually sort of representing you all. And so I'm going to take them through this kind of coaching exploration exercise, but I want everyone to feel that they can participate as well. So the first thing I will ask everyone is,
Mm-hmm.
grab yourself a piece of paper and a pen. Preferably, if you actually have a piece of paper, don't do this in notes on the computer, because that's really rigid and structured. If you have an
Paper and a
iPad
pen.
with a pencil, then it can be a bit more freeform. If you have lined paper like this, flip it around this way so the lines don't kind of constrict you, is
I
my
love that.
suggestion.
I love that.
And what we're going to do is I'm going to be exploring this with Holly and Radu and asking them a lot of questions, but I want you all to follow along and ask yourself the same questions and really do the same activity. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to ask you all to write your name in the center of that piece of paper. Okay. The goal of what we're going to do around our name, filling up the rest of the paper, is to capture as many aspects of our identities as possible. And I'm going to give you a bunch of prompts to do that. And I'm going to be asking Holly and Radu to sort of respond in real time to those prompts. I don't know anything about Holly and Radu. I've just met them, which was deliberate. But other than their names and their locations. But what I have explained to Holly and Radu is, of course, this is personal stuff, and they can certainly choose not to respond to some of the questions. But it's really great of them to do this for us because it's going to give you some extra ideas. And that's really
I'm
part
actually
of
going to
this.
use this time to step out, if that's okay, so that you
Thank
guys have the
you,
space.
So, okay, so what we're going to do, so hopefully you've all got your name in the center of your piece of paper. I'm going to give you a bunch of categories, and what I want you to do with each category, and I'll give you time on each category, is write down any aspect of your identity that fits into that category. And I want you to consider aspects that are important to you that fit in that category, aspects that maybe create tension for you. So we're not just looking for the aspects that you aspire to or make you feel good. We want you to think about the aspects that are just there, regardless of whether you feel positive or negative towards them. You might even write down aspects that others see about you, or others know about you, or you think others perceive of you. So we'll do a couple of examples as we go along. And as I said, Holly and Radu are going to share examples. So let's start with, and just write these aspects randomly around your name as we go along. So the first category is race, ethnicity, and nationality. So any aspects of your identity that relate to race, ethnicity, or nationality. So Holly, I'd love to just ask you while you're writing, what's coming to mind for you?
So the first thing that I've written down is just mixed culture, because I come from several different backgrounds. That's the only thing that I've written down so far.
Okay, great. Keep going. Radu, what are you writing down there?
I wrote obviously Romanian, also Moldovan, because a subset of Romanians are Moldovans, so we kind of have these different zones in Romania.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Caucasian male, something like that as well.
Yeah, it's funny when I think of this too, and this goes back to my thing, like, don't be afraid to write down the things that create tension for you. Like for me, I would write down white. Now, I don't feel great about that. Like it's a source of tension for me. It's a source of discomfort, obviously because of, racial issues, but it is a fact for me. And the fact that I feel that tension means that it is something significant. All right. Holly, anything else coming to you for that one that you've written down?
Yeah, the other thing that I've written down is a third culture kid. So I grew up in a country that I'm not necessarily connected to, racially. So that's another aspect of my personality, I guess, that makes me a bit different.
Yeah, that's a great one. And so I hope that all of you are getting some additional ideas and perspectives. As you can see, there's all sorts of possibilities in any of these categories. Let's move on to the next one, which is religion, faith, and belief. Radu, what's coming up for you in this category?
Well, I'm originally Orthodox Christian, but since my adolescence, I'm an atheist. So that would be the first thing.
Yeah, and so you're bringing up something that's really interesting, and I would encourage you all to capture things that are not necessarily right now. As I said, identity is a journey and an evolution. So there might the identities we've had in the past are still a part of us to some degree. Holly, what about you?
I've written down my faith. I'm a Baha'i, and I believe in the unity of all religions. And I've written down also spirituality and curiosity, because I am a curious seeker and I'm curious about other people's beliefs as well.
Yeah, and I like that you're going to aspects. You're not constraining yourself, to these categories. And I encourage everyone. These aspects are going to spark other ideas. So I think curiosity is such a great one. I mean, you could certainly argue that curiosity is a belief and a faith, but it's just a key aspect of your personality, obviously, Holly. So it's anything that's coming to your mind from the riffing off any of these, please write them down. So the next category is gender and sexuality. Holly, what about you? What's
I've written down the term that everyone's using now is cis female, isn't it? So I've written that down.
Cis female, yes, okay. Radu, what about you?
The regular, boring heterosexual male.
Interesting that you put that qualifier on it, but I'll leave that with you. I don't think that boring necessarily goes with that, but I think it's interesting because what you're highlighting is there's a perspective or potentially a tension there around that. Or a sense that, it's, in some of these discussions, it's, it has a particular position. It's all good to capture. Leaning on from there, family and relationships. Aspects of your identity that relate to family and relationships. Holly, what are you writing down?
The only two that came to mind right now is that I'm a mother and a wife. So that's kind of how I fit into my family currently.
Okay. Radu?
I wrote down single child, although right now I have a sister, but 14 years I grew without her. So she's much younger than me. And I feel more like a single child rather than somebody who lived with a sister. Well, I have two parents. I'm single. It's hard to come up with anything else.
No, that's great. So for those of you also in the audience, Radu mentioned single, so partnership status. I mean, I just write for this one. I just write friend because that's my friendship relationships are very key to my identity. So that could be something. All right, let's move on to occupation, job, role, title. Radu, what are you writing down?
Software engineer, front-end developer. Do hobbies come into this category?
Yeah, well, you can. Yeah, it's actually the next category, but you can. If it's coming to mind now, let's go for it now.
Oh, I'll wait until the next category.
All right. Well, you can start writing them down anyway. Holly, what about you for occupation or job or title or role?
I'm a communications expert. I've been in the field for, I think, about 6-7 years now, and I manage teams. So that's kind of my role at the agency that I work in. I manage teams and I manage clients.
Right, great. Okay, hobbies, pastimes, interests. Radu, you've had a head start on this.
Yep. So I like sports. I'm a football player sometimes. Sometimes I'm a ping pong player. I love art, classical novels of like Dostoevsky or Tolstoy or such and such. And I enjoy rock music, so I guess it's rock love or something like that.
Great. Holly, what about you?
God, I'm a lot less interesting than that. Hobbies is always tricky for me. I'm going to be super honest and say that a pastime of mine is just scrolling on social media, because sometimes you just get so tired in the evening that that's become something that I do. But other than that, I would say from physical activity perspective, I really love yoga and I try and do it as much as possible. And then when it comes to what I like, topics that I'm really interested in and that I find a hobby, I'm really interested in hypnobirthing and everything to do with birth and childbearing. So that's something that I read about a lot.
I don't know why you disclaimed yourself before listing all of that. It's pretty interesting, I think, certainly to me, and I'm sure to everyone else. Okay, so and the last category I want to offer up is a bit of a broader one. Values, traits, and other personality aspects. Radu, you look like you're writing some stuff down there. What's coming up for you?
Well, I thought, what is my relationship to other people? So I'm a humanist. I believe that every life is equally important. I'm a bit hot-headed. That's a trait. I get angry sometimes with things that shouldn't make me angry. Yesterday, for example, a ticket inspector found out that I don't have a ticket in the public transport. And that was because I changed my card, I renewed my card, and my app didn't work. And I had a discussion, 5-minute discussion with him. I tried not to pay the fine. And I got pretty angry at that point, and I decided to give him money so that we don't start a quarrel or something. So
Good self-awareness there, or self-observation. Holly, what about you?
The only things that came to mind were, I'm a very positive person. So I always have a positive outlook. I always try to have a positive outlook on everything, sometimes to a fault. So very optimistic. I value honesty and transparency in everything that I do, in all the conversations that I have with people at work as well. I try to be as open and honest and transparent as possible. And I also really value humor and just having that lighthearted, perspective on life.
Fantastic. So feel free to add, as you look at, hopefully you've got like a nice messy list of words all surrounding your name. Feel free to add anything else as you look at them, and we're gonna look at them through some different lenses now, and more may come to mind as you do that. I did mean to tell you to circle every word that you write as well. So as we go through, just circle all of them, because it will be easier for the next part of the exercise. So all the words you've written down, just put a circle around them. But what we're going to do now is we're going to think about all the things that you've captured, and we're going to sort of categorize them a little bit, if you like. And what I want you to do is to, first of all, start with from the perspective of life as a whole. So we're not talking about a work focus here. We're talking about life in general. What aspects that you've written down are you most proud of right now? And for those ones, I want you to put a star. Just mark them with a star. The aspect that you're most proud of that you've written down. Radu, what are you most proud of?
when Holly mentioned telling the honest conversation, I wrote truthful. I value truth very much, and I've got to it a bit late in my life, which is funny. I'm atheist agnostic because I had to go through difficult discussions with my family sometimes at the table, at the dinner table, about that, and it was like a willpower move to get out of the things that I don't believe are true, and to
great. Holly,
stick to what I believe.
Yeah, thanks, Radu. Holly, what have you put a star next to?
Several things. I'll just share them one by one, I guess. It's always weird talking about things that you're proud of. I don't want to be tooting my own horn, but I am proud of the fact that I come from a mixed culture. So I have an outlook on life in which I can kind of see things from different sides, just because I understand the Arab culture, I understand Western culture, so I am proud of that. I'm proud of being a mother, and I'm proud of my positive outlook on life as well, because I feel like it's helped me a lot, and it's helped me to get to where I am today.
Yeah, and thank you. It's really powerful for us to say what we're proud of, even though, I understand your initial discomfort. I think we often all share that, but it's the things we speak are the things we really kind of become clear on, I think. So it's part of the exercise. What about the things that you've written down that are most challenging for you? And I would encourage you to mark them with an exclamation mark. The things that are most challenging for you, aspects of your identity that are most challenging.
Challenging in the sense of them causing frictions, or?
Yeah, friction, either externally or internally, maybe the things that you wrestle with a little bit, feel discomfort from. This one's definitely voluntary. Anyone, either of you want to share on this one?
I can start.
Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
So I said I'm hot-headed. I feel like I waste a lot of energy sometimes because I get ramped up emotionally from things that shouldn't bother me that much. I'm an introvert, so sometimes I wish I would be more easier to it would be easier for me to communicate with people. Like sometimes my friends call me out and I don't want to go, and I feel guilty about that sometimes. I'm disagreeable too. I had a personality test and I'm in bottom 4% of agreeableness, and which means I guess I'm less empathetic to the other people's emotions, or I don't care that much. I'm not sure. Which sometimes brings me into situations where maybe some people think that I'm off-putting by the way I communicate. Yeah, that is it.
Thanks, Radu. Holly, did you want to share anything on this one?
I'm struggling with this one. I think Raju shared it amazingly. That was very vulnerable. So thank you for sharing all of that. I think I would just say the one that I put the exclamation mark on was that I wish I didn't spend so much time on social media and instead did more beneficial things. So that's one thing that I have friction with sometimes.
Okay. Personal challenge for yourself there. Yeah. So the next one is the things that you talk the least about to others. And so I encourage you to mark that with a shh. Okay, so you just write SHH or something next to that. So the things that you talk the least about. Some of these may overlap too. So don't worry if you're, putting exclamation stars and shh next to the same things. And I'm going to leave that one for, Holly, do you want to share? I was going to say I'll leave that one for quiet reflection, but if you're ready to share, please do.
I was just going to say, I think out of everything that I've written down, the least thing that I probably talk about to others is my faith. It's not something that comes up in conversation as much as other things. So
yeah. All right. Thank you. Now what I want you to do is draw a line between two or more aspects that are most closely linked to each other. So link them with a line. Could be a pair, could be a triple, could be a few different pairs.
Sorry,
Aspects
can
that
you
are
repeat? I got
yeah, sure,
disconnected
Radu.
for.
Yeah, so aspects, between the aspects that you've written down that are most closely linked to each other, draw a line between them. And then for possibly the same ones that you've just drawn a line between, or possibly others, I want you to think about aspects that are in conflict with each other. And I want you to draw a line between them as well, and then put like two sort of perpendicular lines across the center of that to indicate that those things are in conflict. It doesn't have to be major conflict. It could just be tension or slight opposition or... All right. So the final thing that I want to do now is I'm gonna ask you to do a couple more notations, but this time specifically focused on work. So within the work scenario that is most relevant for you individually, what are the aspects that you are known for at work? And what I want you to do is I want you to tick those. Place a tick mark or a check mark against the aspects that you are most known for at work. Holly, what are you ticking?
I've ticked the positive outlook on life, and I've ticked the humor, and I've also ticked the curiosity aspect.
Great, thank you. And Radu, what about you?
Well, I think people notice that I'm hot-headed sometimes because I get into discussions when they review my work. Sometimes we have too much discussion about that. Optimistic in the sense that I have over-optimistic deadlines and then I miss them. I mean, I set optimistic deadlines and I miss them.
I'm curious, did you draw a line between optimistic and hot-headed?
Actually, no, I didn't.
I wonder if there's a connection for you between those two. Just something to think about.
It may well be. Also, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go on.
I'm an introvert, and on meetings in my company we have social meetings, and sometimes I feel like I don't contribute enough to the discussions, and I think like people notice that as well.
All right, so the next one is to put a plus sign against anything that helps you do your work. What aspects of your identity help you do your work? Put a plus sign next to them. Holly, something that helps you do your work?
I mean, I guess again, the just like my values and the way that I see life, so the positive outlook. But I've also put a plus sign next to my mixed culture and my background and yoga, because yoga helps me do my work. It helps me to decompress in the evenings and in the mornings so that I can do a better job during the day.
Great. And Radu, what did you put a plus sign
I
against?
put a plus in front of male because in my mind, men are more striving to improve their social status than women. The fact that I'm single and I have more time to dedicate for work, and optimistic because when the deadline is missed, I still don't lose hope.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Thanks for sharing those. So the next one I want you to do is put an up arrow, like meaning an increase sort of sign, to the aspects of your identity that could be more present at work, or you want to be more known for at work. The things that you could bring more of to work, the things you would like to be more known for at work. So put an up arrow next to those. Holly, you look like you're struggling a little more with this one.
Yeah, I blanked on this one because I don't know. I don't know why, but I can't think of anything.
Radu, what about you?
Extroversion, I think.
Okay.
Also truthfulness, because sometimes I don't like. We have 8-hour work days, but sometimes I work less because I'm not in a good mood for that, let's say. And then I compensate on other days, but I'm not like, I don't say like, oh, I'll be doing nothing for 2 hours. I'll be watching YouTube or something.
Right. So
I hope nobody from my work watches this stream.
They will respect your truthfulness, Radu, if they do. Holly, what were you going to add?
I managed to add one. Just being more of a friend, maybe, because sometimes I do get caught up in the day-to-day, and I could potentially just make more time to have conversations that are not work-related with coworkers, for example. So maybe that's something that I want to bring a little bit more to my job.
Great. So the last one I'm going to ask, maybe it may be a tougher one for you and for our audience to find an immediate answer for. So, but it is, what is an aspect that you fear being stereotyped for? So it might be an aspect that you think, oh, because I have this aspect of my identity, people might see me in a certain way, in a certain stereotyped way. So I'll share for myself on this one. So being a gay man, is definitely one that, less so now, but certainly in several work situations, I felt very reticent to share that, not because I was ashamed of it, but because of the stereotypes that I thought others would bring to that.
I'd say maybe. So this is not something that I feel often, just because I'm lucky to work in a place that doesn't make me feel that way whatsoever. But just generally, I guess maybe in society, is the fact that I am a new mom and I'm navigating my new work life as a new mother, with number 2 on the way as well. So that's something that, I don't necessarily have a fear of being stereotyped for, but it's something that sometimes might come to mind as, oh, if someone knows this about me, they might think that I'm busy being a mom and not working as hard as I should be. This is just something that I think has been embedded in my brain from a society perspective. So that's just one for me.
Yeah. So what I would suggest for anyone that's captured something in this one, I would write own next to it, as in own it. So that would be my suggestion, to mark that one distinctly by writing own. Radu, was there anything for you on that one?
Yep. It's too related to the nationality. I'm both a Moldovan and Romanian by nationality, and by citizenship. I was born in Moldova, and Moldova and Romania are in the same cultural space. Like culturally, it's basically the same people, in my opinion. And Moldova is more like provincial. It's a smaller country, and I felt like people thought of me, or I was afraid that they would think of me as being from more rural, more basic, more unsophisticated. And then there's another thing, Eastern European, which is in relationship to people from America and from more developed countries. Sometimes I think that people think of me as sort of again, more basic kind of person, that because I sometimes express myself worse in English because my English isn't my native language. They may think that if I cannot express a more complex thought, I don't have them. So that is.
Thank you, Radu, for sharing that. Okay, so what do we do with all of this? Well, for a start, I mean, I think I feel like, you both have shared an enormous richness of your identities just in going through this exercise. I do this exercise with teams, and where we normally take it now is to use all that categorization to help people form stories that they want to share for the things that they choose to share. So you were both very brave and kind of took us through the journey on the way. Normally we would do this as a sort of quiet reflection through all of that, and then encourage people to, using those filters, decide what's the aspect that you want to share and what's the story you want to tell about that. So for you all, both of you, Holly and Radu, and for the audience as well, just reflecting on what's on your page, thinking about what's your identity opportunity at work. It may be one of the things that we just discussed. What could you bring more to the fore? What could you raise up? Or what's your identity threat at work? What is the element of you that brings you some discomfort? Is there an opportunity to bring that and own it? And also, what are you happy to hang on to and keep to yourself? What are you like, yep, that's mine, or that's for this situation, and yeah, I'm not really going to bring that to work. That's okay too. So what I would love everyone to do is just think of one action item that they can decide, hey, this is an aspect that I want to raise up a little bit at work, or I want to talk about a little more, or I want to find a way to bring, because I think it will help me and it will help the work. So that's everyone's action item for this. Again, the storytelling is really important, and that is something that I would typically take this exercise into with an intact team, is get into some storytelling. And that is something that we should always continue to do, because, as I said, our identities are constantly evolving. We always have new stories to tell about who we are. So I want to thank you, Holly and Radu, so much for going through this. And really, I'm sure the audience is like both grateful, impressed, and you've probably given them lots of other sparks and ideas as well.
Awesome. I hope so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just to echo what Jonathan said, Holly, Radu, thank you so much for coming and sharing part of yourselves with us. I mean, like, kudos to you. You've really shared like some vulnerable sides of you, and a lot of us saw versions of ourselves in you. I think I can definitely say I resonated with a lot of what you said. Even just something as simple as like, Radu, I also have a brother who's 24 years younger than me. So there you have it. Like, you find these similarities, these differences, these stories, they make up who we are. Thank you so much. Jonathan and I want to have like a quick discussion about
just
what
before we let them go, Tala, can I just ask, is there one thing that either of you feel like, oh, that's something I want to bring more of?
To work?
To work, yeah.
Yeah, well, I would say one of them, being more open to connect with people from other teams that I don't know in the company. Frequently, I need to resolve problems that cannot be resolved on my own, and I hesitate. I try to search for solutions without touching other people, without being social.
What's the aspect of your identity that you'd written down that you want to lean into to do that?
Well, it's extroversion, I guess, and more courage.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Holly?
So when I talked about the whole new motherhood thing and you told me to write own next to it, that got me thinking. And it just made me think of all the things that I'm learning from motherhood that I can also potentially bring to my role as an account manager and everything that I do at work too. So that was an interesting food for thought for me, which I didn't think about that way before.
Great. I love that. Thank you again, both of you. So appreciate your willingness to show up for this and to be vulnerable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Tala.
Wow, what a beautiful session that was. Thank you for moderating that. I'm sure everybody has something that looks a little bit like this with the lines, but it's a beautiful map almost of your character and kind of where we go from here. We are running out of time, but I do want to ask you one question, Jonathan, maybe two. My first question is for you is like, what stands out to you about that exercise and how teams can kind of bring that storytelling piece, whether it's this conversation with Radu and Holly or other ones that you've had? How have you seen it kind of be really impactful in creating mutual knowledge with teams and building interpersonal connections? Really curious to get your thoughts on how you've seen this applied in a work setting.
Yeah. I think I've gone through a lot of iterations of this in various guises, and there's a lot of great team discovery and building exercises that people do at offsites and stuff, and I think they're great, and I think they get to a lot of the same purpose. What I'm very conscious with this one is people do need the ability to reflect first, right? I think sometimes those get to know you things are kind of a little bit like you sort of demanded to sort of perform in the moment straight away and be really aware. And these things require constant reflection and exploration. So that's partly why I think it's powerful to give people the tools to do that reflection through the simple, categorization and connection.
Yeah. It's such a simple framework, but it extracts so much common ground, and also, like you said, the differences in people, right? To say that, like Holly talked about motherhood, I'm a new mom. Maybe we approach things differently. Maybe we're the same in the sense that we're feeling like we want to own it in a different way, and also just to kind of establish that shared ground. I think I'd love to ask you, when is a good point for teams to run such an exercise? Like, when is it on an onboarding journey, when a new member is kind of brought onto the team? Is it after a year of working together? Is there a right time? Maybe there isn't.
I think there's I think anytime and somewhat regularly, because I think that's the other thing is what I see a lot of teams do is they do their one get to know you activity, and then everything is just based on that. It's like, no, we're so much more complicated. There's so many, as I said, there's so many stories to tell. There's so many aspects to uncover. That finding small ways to do this and explore it regularly as part of and even integrated into the work that's where I'd be going.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like you said, our identities are always evolving, and so there's I agree with you in the sense like having those check-ins and running this exercise at a cadence that's kind of regular allows you to also chart your own growth and reflect on where you've come and what parts of you're owning. And if you say like own it, have you reflecting on that piece? Is it still an area that you find friction? Is it still an area where you're limiting yourself? So it can be more. I'd love to then
just to add one more thing about that, particularly for leadership. I think one thing that leadership can keep an eye out for is the kind of stereotyping that can happen around aspects of identity. And often it sort of comes around as jokes, like, oh, that's because so-and-so's like this, or that's because, and a little bit of that is fine. But sometimes as a leader, you can start to build that awareness. Is someone being put in a box because of that aspect of their identity? And that can be a thing that the leader can, break open that box a little more.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Actually, one of my questions was, how can leaders create the space for employees to share these aspects of their identity, even when they might be in conflict with maybe there's two values that a leader and someone on their team has. And so kind of how do you create the space for people to say that, this is part of me, even when maybe there's friction between the version of, the identity of a leader itself. So yeah, I want to ask you though, kind of going from the team level, I want to kind of take us to the organizational level. So, how can organizations and companies of different sizes and scales embrace identity? So, like, how do startups, SMEs, multinationals, how do they shape a more inclusive employee experience that allows employees to kind of to present the parts of their identity, if not their whole self, the parts of them that they choose to bring to work?
Yeah, here's what I've really noticed in working in really large organizations, working with smaller organizations, is that this kind of work is often sort of relegated to, that's for the people, that's not for the leadership.
Yes.
And that becomes more intense the bigger the organization gets. And I always, with my clients, I really try and counter that and say, no, this is for you first. This is for the executive team first. And it's hard because sometimes the executive team is like, no, we've got money to make. We've got things to do. We don't have time for this. That's for the the people that rock up 9 to 5 every day. That's not for us.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if you're in that situation, well, this is never going to be really supported or incorporated because it's not seen as valuable. So the flip side of that is, of course, really great modeling and vulnerability and transparency, and that storytelling is demonstrated by leadership and encouraged. And it's amazing to me that, we've all worked in organizations where, everyone's looking up and looking at, it's looking at that behavior and going, well, if that's what that person's doing, that's what I should be doing.
Absolutely.
So it can be a challenge for, certainly someone as a consultant in my role to push that angle, because I get a lot of, come and do this for the team. And I'm like, well, let's start with you.
Right. Yeah, of course. One of the key learnings from one of the earlier sessions of our conference was about, like, leadership endorsement is great. And the manager can say, like, we are running this identity workshop for you. Please attend, please be engaged, and please be vulnerable. But actually, endorsement's one thing and engagement's another. So where the leader is like, I did this, or I'm doing it with you. I'm equally as vulnerable. I'm being equally as honest with those areas of myself that I want to own, work on, present, where there's friction. So I couldn't agree more. I think absolutely that engagement piece and that involvement from leaders, and that's where we start. Culture starts at the top. We say that. And so if you have a culture where your leaders
you can't get away from that.
No.
You can try and do grassroots and it has some effect, but you're definitely working uphill.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I would love to sit and kind of talk about this. I think we've had an incredible audience engagement. I have so many things I want to also talk about in terms of where I found similarities and differences to Holly and Radu, who I don't work with, and I'm sure yourself. But you've given us so much to think about, Jonathan. I want to thank you so much for this really, really thought-provoking exercise, and it's caused us to all have a moment of reflection, but also intention setting. I do have to kind of take us to our rapid fire questions. I won't ask them as, vivaciously as I usually do, because I think the mood of the room, this virtual space, is one that's, very intentional and meaningful. So I just have a few questions I'd love to ask you just about to complete the sentence, really. So the first one is great employee experience is?
Feeling like you're valued.
Yeah, I love that. And if a leader should read one book today, it should be?
I love Amy Edmondson's The Fearless Organization.
Oh,
Psychological safety, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And the ideal workplace is?
One you get to do work that you're proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe both you and I feel like we're on that ship, so we're really grateful for that. And then the last one is the secret ingredient to great employee experience is?
Enabling potential in your teams, hence the name of my consultancy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enabling
potential
it's great. It's the biggest lesson I've learned, and I think it's it's fulfilling for everyone that's involved in it.
For sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Leaders helping teams extract their potential, employees living out what they see, like finding new levels that they can achieve. So that's awesome. Jonathan, thank you so much for creating this experience for us, running this session, hosting it. I also really want to once again thank Holly and Radu. They were remarkable volunteers. They've shared a lot of themselves with us today, and I think everybody can agree that we're so grateful. I hope everybody has taken a minute to kind of note down the nuances of this exercise, and how we can really bring that to our work, how we can be intentional, how it can be reflective of who we are, those parts of ourselves that we want to work on, and those parts of ourselves that we want to own and be proud of. I want to thank our attendees for tuning in. I think everybody has a notebook similar to the one I shared, where there's scribbles and lines and a map of kind of the version of yourself that you've thought of today. And thank you for your questions, and thank you for engagement. We will repost this video on our social media pages, on our website, and we'll restream it, I think, Jonathan and myself, on our own LinkedIn pages. Our next and last conference session is happening tomorrow at 4 p.m. Dubai time. Breeze Dong, who is a transformation and enterprise agile coach at Roche, is going to share her insights on human-centered design, systems thinking, and what employee engagement looks like at scale. So thank you to everybody, to Jonathan, to Holly, to Raju, to our attendees. Thank you to the team at Cosmic Centers. They are avidly posting and sharing insights on our website, on the Cosmic Centers Conference.com website, and across our social media pages. For more on our content, you can subscribe to our newsletter, or and check out the link in our comment section to do so. So thank you, everybody. Thank you once again, Jonathan. And we will see you guys tomorrow at 4 p.m. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tala.
Take care. Bye now.